Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host Rob. In today's video we're going to be looking at another suggestion from same viewer as suggested the Oathbreaker Paladin videos. Subscriber Morgan wanted to look at a Barbarian Wizard multi-class. Now obviously this isn't going to be the most natural of fits. As we all know, you can't cast spells while raging or concentrate on spells while raging, and casting spells is kind of what wizards do. So it's not what we would consider a very natural combination. But there is one subclass of wizard that I think works pretty well actually with barbarians. I mean, maybe the only one, to be honest. And that is the War Wizard from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And there's a couple different reasons. So we'll talk about that specific subclass in a moment. I think that for the Barbarian, it really doesn't matter so much. I would probably lean towards one of the, just whatever one I wanted to play, right? Or whatever kind of theme or mood I wanted. If you just want the strongest ones, of course, there's nothing wrong with that either. Totem Warrior is obviously really good. Zealot's really good, But feel free to pick whichever one you think is the most interesting or maybe fits the theme or idea of your character. So as for the War Wizard, I would only take probably the first 2 levels, but we actually get quite a bit for those levels. So let's take a quick look at the War Wizard's abilities and what we're going to be getting. So at level 2 we get Arcane Deflection. When you are hit by an attack or fail a saving throw, you can use your reaction to gain a +2 bonus to your armor class against that attack, or a +4 bonus to that saving throw. That's already pretty good. When you use the feature, you can't cast spells other than cantrips until the end of your next turn. So the downside is we can't cast any leveled spells until the end of our next turn. But we're probably going to be raging anyways, which means this isn't really even a downside for us. We weren't going to be able to cast anyway. So who cares? We just can give ourselves a +2 to our armor class or +4 to our saving throw unlimited times, just requiring our reaction. This is actually pretty good. Now, I will point out that if we're recklessly attacking, +2 to our armor class isn't as good as it would be on, say, like a fighter or a paladin or somebody like that, right? Those classes tend to have higher armor class anyways because you could potentially wear heavy armor, whereas Barbarian, you're not going to be able to do that if you want to rage. And also, you've got things like the defensive fighting style you might have taken. You might have wanted to use a shield. I mean, you might have. Either way, though, the big thing is, because you're not recklessly attacking, you're not giving everybody else advantage to hit you all the time. Whereas so on a Barbarian, because we are doing that, that +2 isn't as big a boost as it would be on other classes, but it's not nothing, and it's using our reaction, which we probably didn't have a lot of uses for anyways, so why not? And +4 to a saving throw is excellent, because this is something that Barbarians often really lack in, which is that you want to maintain your attacking so that you can keep your rage up, but then you fail a saving throw, you get feared or something else, which becomes less of an issue as you level up on a Barbarian. A lot of subclasses and Barbarian abilities do help to compensate against things like fear and charm and whatnot, but just giving yourself a +4 to a saving throw is a huge boost and means that you're more likely to be able to stay in those front ranks, smacking people with your war maul or whatever weapon of choice might have happened to be, and just, doing your job. And I like that quite a bit. Anyways, the other ability we also get, though, is Tactical Wit. Starting at 2nd level, your keen ability to assess tactical situations allows you to act quickly in battle. You can give yourself a bonus to your initiative rolls equal to your intelligence modifier. Again, not too bad, actually. Now, I don't know how high of an intelligence I'm going to have. It's obviously going to be at least 13 in order to multi-class in or out of Wizard. Am I going to have a 16 intelligence? Probably not, especially if I'm only taking 2 levels of Wizard. But, I might put a 14 in, right? +2 to my initiative. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to take some spells that are probably going to be ritual spells for the most part. I'm not going to be casting a lot in combat. And so my idea is I'm going to end up at 7th level. I'm going to have my 5 levels of Barbarian giving me extra attack and all that stuff. And my 2 levels of War Wizard giving me bonuses to my initiative, armor class, and saving throws. And like I said, these aren't limited abilities. I mean, I guess the first one's limited just by the fact that it requires your reaction, but it's not limited times per day or anything like that. It's just every round. Somebody tries to hit you, I'll give myself a +2 to my armor class. Somebody casts a spell on me or uses an effect that requires a saving throw, I'll give myself a +4 if it looks like I need it, right? It's pretty good. And every single time I roll initiative, I've just got my intelligence bonus added to that initiative bonus. So I thought I'd at least mention some of the ritual spells that you can get, even as just first level spells, right? We have Alarm, Comprehend Languages, Detect Magic, Find Familiar, Tense's Floating Disc, and Unseen Servant. There's some other ones as well, but these are the ones that I think are actually really good, and there are spells that I would be using quite a bit probably. Tense's Floating Disc is a really nice way to be able to like transport stuff sometimes, you know, which DMs sometimes get really, really fussy about. Oh, well, now that you've killed the monster, how are you going to take his treasure? And you're like, yeah, son of a gun. How am I going to do it? Oh, wait, the Barbarian, of all people, can cast Floating Disc. And it's a ritual, so we can just keep recasting it every time it runs out, you know? These are kind of abilities that a Barbarian doesn't usually offer to a party. And obviously, if you have a wizard or somebody else in your party who has a lot of these spells, then the benefit from it is going to be pretty minimal, right? Because that guy could have done it anyways. But if you had, say, maybe a warlock or a sorcerer or somebody like that, I mean, a warlock could have impacted the tome, but we all know they're all hex blades. Who are we trying to kid? You know, so those people aren't going to be doing a lot of ritual casting, and then you could actually fill that role while also boosting your combat abilities at the same time, and just adding a bit more versatility to your Barbarian, which is something that Barbarians usually kind of struggle at. We all know they are great in a fight, but everything that's not fighting tends to be where Barbarian maybe doesn't shine quite as much. And being able to add some more flexibility to your character is a pretty good thing. So like I said, I think that's a pretty decent starting base point, right? I'm probably going to go to Barbarian 5 immediately. Starting Barbarian is going to give me more hit points and all that. It's going to give me extra attack as quickly as possible. Then I'm going to add my 2 levels of Wizard so that I've got my ritual casting and I've got some nice defensive abilities and my initiative boost. You know, let's not forget that. That's important. And then after that, where do we go from here? Well, there's a few different options. Number one is to just go back to Barbarian again and keep leveling up as a Barbarian. And this isn't a bad option. We're going to get subclass features at level 6. We're going to start getting things like brutal criticals and stuff like that, which are all pretty handy. Another option, though, which does get a little awkward, is maybe to look at taking Paladin for a few levels. And I know what you're thinking. Now we're needing strength and charisma and intelligence, and we're a frontline guy. We're going to need some constitution. And that is true. That is a lot of ways to be splitting our stats. But the truth is, we don't really need a lot of charisma. All we need is a 13. Now, that can be a problem if we also need a 13 or 14 intelligence and a 13 or 14 con and, presumably 16 plus strength, right? That can be a lot. But if you think you're in a position to pull it off, I think Paladin makes a lot of sense. We've got those 2 levels of Wizard as full caster to help give us some higher level spell slots. We could potentially be smiting. We could grab ourselves a fighting style. There's quite a bit there to offer. I don't think it's essential to the build, though. I would add it in, after we've kind of got everything else in place. And like I said, you don't even have to get it at all, in my opinion. I would not bother with like Hexblade in a case like this, I don't think. Partly because in order to use, I'd have to be using a one-handed weapon, which isn't the worst thing ever on a Barbarian, but, I mean, I have Reckless Attack. I might as well go Great Weapon Master, make full use of that and just hit as hard as possible. I could take 3 levels of Warlock to get the Pact of the Blade, but, now it's looking like a huge investment. Plus, the Hexblade doesn't really give me anything I'm really looking for, except for maybe Hexblade's Curse, right? But, being able to attack with my charisma doesn't help when I specifically need to attack with strength in order to be using my rages and reckless attack abilities properly. So, I probably wouldn't bother with that, but I think Paladin maybe makes some sense there. Like I said, it is hard with the Wizard. Now, we could have gone with a different or with a different class. Maybe we just go Sorcerer instead of Wizard. But Sorcerer, I don't know. I feel like at least with the War Wizard, even when we're not casting spells, the War Wizard abilities giving us the saving throw, the armor class, the initiative boost, those are all pretty handy. And ritual spell casting on a character that doesn't normally have it is pretty nice as well, right? So I don't think that some of the others offer quite as much in that area. But I don't mind the idea, like I said, of maybe grabbing some Paladin levels if we can fit the Charisma. And maybe we can't, right? In which case, I'd probably just go more Barbarian. Or maybe some Fighter or something like that, right? Where I'm already meeting the strength requirement. I don't have to worry about it. Grabbing Action Surge is never going to be a bad play, honestly. It's hard to go wrong with that, So the point is, there are other options from there. But you could just go back into Barbarian, and I think that works pretty fine too. So things I like about this. For your first 5 levels, you're basically just a Barbarian. So nothing wrong with that, Those are kind of the levels where Barbarian really, really shines pretty bright in those first 5, 6 levels of play, right? It's as you level up beyond that and you aren't getting higher level spells that other classes are getting, you aren't getting, a lot of the other progression that say a Paladin would get with higher level spells to smite with, even if they're not casting spells. Their damage capabilities keep going up and up and up. Whereas the Barbarian, you've kind of plateaued. Your rage bonuses scale very, very slowly. And the only thing that's really increasing a lot is your brutal criticals, which only matter when you get a natural 20 for the most part, right? So I find that Barbarian tends to start really strong, and it's not like they get bad, and they end very strong too. Their capstone is one of the best in the entire game, right? +4 strength, +4 con, ignores, the level 20 maximum cap. It's awesome. It's just that, between 5 and 20, your progression's kind of like this, when a lot of other classes are kind of progressing like that, So it's not like it's awful or anything, but after the 5 levels Barbarian, I might want to start looking elsewhere. So I'm just giving you ideas of maybe where else to look, right? So like I said, Wizard becomes a very nice alternative, like I said. I think that Artificer could work as well. You're already meeting the intelligence requirement, presumably. So I think that that's actually not a bad bet. Getting things like hit point turrets and stuff like that to just throw temporary hit points every round is also pretty handy. So, especially on a Barbarian. So I think that there's maybe some alternatives there as well. That would also give us some higher level spells. The thing is, though, I don't know that I really want to invest a lot into spell casting levels if I have nothing to do with those spells, right? This is why I kind of like Paladin, because then at least I can be smiting with those spell slots, and I can still be doing all the ritual casting I wanted to do, because as a Wizard, those aren't requiring spell slots. So I think that's more where I would focus. So anyways, to kind of sum things up, I'm looking at my 5 levels Barbarian, 2 levels of War Wizard, and then from there, I'm going to either probably want to go back to Barbarian again, which is fine, or I'm going to go into something like Paladin, which is also fine if I can squeeze in the requirements. And there are a lot of people who still have DMs who let them roll for stats and stuff, or whatever. So there are campaigns where it's actually not a problem to have 3 14s and a 16 strength or whatever, right? So if you're in that kind of campaign, I think this becomes a lot more doable. If you're limited to standard array or point buy, I probably wouldn't bother trying to fit in the Paladin, because you just start spreading yourself really thin. But anyways, those are my main thoughts on it. I don't think there's a lot more to really say about it. It's basically, you could always take more levels of Wizard if you wanted more spell casting, but then the conflict with the rage, not being able to cast, really, really starts to come into play. And, if you're not going to be raging, it's kind of well, you probably could have just gone Fighter instead of Barbarian, and you might have been in a better place, right? So I feel like Yes, it's a good way to get advantage from reckless attack. I guess there's always that still, right? But you've got these really, really good, solid core, low-level barbarian abilities, and if I'm just going to be using them defensively, or my wizard abilities defensively, and then for versatility by casting out of combat, then why not go barbarian? It suddenly becomes a really, really solid choice. So that's kind of where I'd be leaning towards. As far as feat choices, there's nothing that I absolutely feel like I have to absolutely have. Obviously, things like alert are just going to be good generally. I'm going to probably want, I mean, at least in my case, if I'm going barbarian, I'm a pretty big fan of Great Weapon Mastery and possibly Polearm Mastery on top of that. So I might be looking to grab both of those. Things like the Crusher feat, though, are a really, really great choice on a character like a barbarian, especially if I was able to start with, like, say, a 15 strength, put +2 into that to go to 17, take Crusher right at level 1 as, not variant human because I would have had the 15, but, custom lineage. I could have started with an 18 strength in that case and had Crusher. That's pretty nice, right? So, I think that's pretty good, especially if I'm not planning on using a polearm. If I was going to use polearm with Great Weapon Mastery, I might start with polearm Mastery instead. But if I'm planning on just using a maul because I want to use my bonus action for other things a lot, then, by all means, that's a pretty good way to go. And like I said, the ritual spell casting, Comprehend Languages is pretty much always a useful spell. You're always going to have times where you can't communicate with somebody, and Comprehend Languages is good. Find Familiar. I mean, Find Familiar is probably the best, first level spell in the game, period, let alone among ritual casting, right? So, having like some cool familiar, like an owl or something that can do flyby attacks, that kind of stuff is awesome. Not much to be said about it. You don't really need to worry about a lot of the weird shenanigans, or some people might have the pet try to take the help action to assist you to give you advantage, because you've already got advantage. You've got reckless attack, But, just adding a lot of these ritual spell abilities to the barbarian can be pretty nice. And, gives you out of combat stuff that you can contribute to the party. It gives you some nice defensive abilities to help bolster your barbarian, because the barbarian, you're a barbarian, the offense is covered, you've got that in spades. It's the other part of the package that is often lacking. And I think this makes an interesting way of overcoming some of those weaknesses. So anyways, that's going to be everything for this video. I guess you could always, I should have mentioned things like Fey Touched. Even if you don't have second level spells, you can still cast, Misty Step once per day for free if you really want to get into combat and you really need that extra point of intelligence or charisma or whatever it was. That's not a bad call, especially if you were planning on going into like more paladin levels or something and you were going to have higher level spell slots. Then obviously something like that becomes a lot better. Telekinetic feat isn't a bad choice either, especially if you're not using a polearm. Maybe you just went with a giant maul and Crusher, like I said, right? In which case, gives you something to do with a bonus action. Could be worse. Overall, though, I think at this point, we all know what feats we kind of want on these characters. I mean, the game's been around for a while. Even the newest stuff from like Tasha's isn't really new anymore, if you know what I mean. So we've had a time to figure out what we like, what we don't, whatever. Overall, though, I actually think that's a pretty fun combination. I like the fact that all the key elements are already there by level 7. That means that it's going to be useful in most campaigns. And even if I'm in a campaign that goes to like 12th or 13th or 15th level, it means that the core elements of my character are going to be there for the vast majority of the campaign. Even if I go to level 10, it's going to be still pretty good, But if I go to like 12th or 13th, I've got even more time to play with it. So, I like it even more, right? But anyways, that's everything. I realize there's not as much to say in this video as in some of the others, but, that's mostly because it's just a 2-level dip, and it's a, pretty simple concept, but very effective as well. And I kind of like builds like this, to be honest. Not everything has to be like 4 different classes trying to all combine together to form some sort of, Mona Lisa-like masterpiece. Or maybe I should have made a Transformer reference since they're all coming together, or a Voltron reference. Whatever. Who cares? Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. Anyways, that's everything. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and most importantly, like always, leaving your comments in the comment section. I read every single comment I get, even if I don't always respond to all of them. So thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Bye.